This is our fifth class, number 5. Class number 5 on the Christian worldview. Until the last class, last week, we have discussed the definition, basically the main fundamental concept of a worldview. So before we go into the Christian worldview, we like to know what the worldview is about, and what does worldview do actually to the people, and the function or roles of worldview we have discussed. Now, on today's class, it's titled Lesson 2, but this is our fifth, number 5 class. And we're going to see the nature of the worldview, or the characteristics of worldview. So we discussed the definition or concept, then we have discussed the function and the role. Now we are going to begin to discuss the characteristic or some distinctive characters of worldview. And in anthropology, the worldview is a big topic. Probably especially in a cultural anthropology, this worldview is probably the main topic and subject that people or scholars discuss when they try to understand the culture. So to understand the culture, worldview is the basic and the fundamental idea and the subject. Now, today the title says worldview is puzzled. It's puzzled because worldview has many different pieces or domains that it deals with. Basically, the worldview deals with all the areas of human life. So whether you're eating, whether you're sleeping, your house, and your relationships, your families, and even the system of marriage. These are all the areas the worldview deals with. So it has to be puzzled. It's like a piece of puzzle. So what do I mean by worldview is puzzled? Many worldviews and none alike. Worldview from Korea might be quite different from the worldview to the North Korea. So even South and North Korea, they've been divided more than 70 years now. And because of that gap and distance of many years, the language is different, the government system is different, and the people are different. So this difference means not only the difference of the visibles, but it means difference behind those visible things, which is a worldview. So worldview from general worldview from South Korea is quite different from that of North Korea. So again, Korea and Japan is two different countries, two different ethnic groups. They do not share the same worldview. Some of the worldviews they do share, but much of it is different. So as many as a nation or a tribe or ethnicity or even families, and then even to individuals. So there's say we have 6 billion or 7 billion Earth population, and that means we have 6 billion or 7 billion different worldviews, because no individual even the twins in a family, they do not share the same worldview. They may share the much of it, but there are different worldviews. And the problem rises from having many different worldview, which none are like. It causes the question of your world or my world. People live in their own world. Every individual person, whether it's a children or whether it's an old lady, they do have their own worldview. And actually, every person think they are the center of the universe. That's a basic idea and basic ego of a person and people. So what does it then mean? It means that everyone has their own thoughts. Not only the thoughts, they have their own ideas and philosophies, and behind those philosophy and ideas, they do have different worldviews. So eventually it comes to the question, is it going to be your worldview or my worldview that overrules? So that becomes a power situation. That's why there are conflicts and tensions, not just the differences. I mean, if you can tolerate those tolerate meaning accepting someone else's action or idea or words as they are, and you do not really mind, that's tolerance, right? So if you can tolerate someone else's worldview, and as many as you can tolerate, you will not have problems. But not every person are that mature. Indeed, each and every person, most of us, are not that mature. So when it comes to the situation, you have tension or disagreement or conflict, and you have to go behind those conflicts and see what causes that tension and problem and issues and conflicts. And most likely, you'll find the worldview as the cause, the underlying cause of those tension and troubles. Because when you do not share the same values, which is closely related to the worldview, then you will have a problem. So it comes, is it going to be your worldview or my worldview? People, by instinct, they incline to have their own ways to be the ways of the people, which, and if you translate, people want their worldview to dominate. Okay, that's the keyword. Dominate the things. So, dominance. That becomes a big word to discuss in the topic of worldview. So whose worldview is going to dominate? It happens between the countries too. There are two major world powers today, they say. USA, America, and China. So these are two main powers. Not only they are main powers, they share their their own worldview. So America has capitalism as their financial worldview. On the contrary, China has a socialism as their economic fundamental. So there are two different fundamentals, and recent trade war between China and USA It's not just a thing of who gets more money, but it has to do with the basic philosophy behind those financial and economic agenda. So we in America, we believe the capitalistic way of finance and economy is more prosperous, or is more helpful for the people. On the contrary, Chinese government and Chinese people believe socialistic, meaning helping the society, helping the people, and the people sharing the wealth is more of a better idea for the running of a nation's economy. So these are like two different worldviews. So whose worldview is controlling or dominating the world? That's gonna be the continuing question. Unless China or USA just throw away their worldview and take someone else's, some other ideas. So that sometimes happens, and we call that a paradigm shift. So paradigm shift is a cause of the result of dominance. Paradigm shift is a pretty important keyword when you are doing an academic study and when you are dealing with cultures and the ideas. So when someone else's worldview dominates yours, and then you voluntarily or sometimes involuntarily change your worldview, or replace your worldview, or shift your worldview, and it results a paradigm shift. Meaning your paradigm, your way of seeing and understanding and perceiving the situation and the context and the people and the history and these things are changed from A to B. So Christianity, again, you're not born as a Christian. You're never born as a Christian. You might be born into a Christian family or Christian tradition or a so-called Christian nation, and or into as a member of a church because your parents are a member of church. But that does not mean that you are you have such a built-in paradigm or worldview, Christian worldview. So everyone who becomes a Christian experiences this paradigm shift on their life. So your life view, your value shift from A to B. So if you are a Christian, that means your worldview has totally changed from your previous worldview, whatever that was. It could be a socialism, communism, or animism, or a new age idea, whatever that idea was, or the worldview was. You're going to throw that away and replace that with a Christian worldview. So there is that important moment or process. Sometimes it happens in a moment, just like that, switch from this to that. But most people do not have that kind of process. For example, Paul had that kind of switching moment. But Peter in the Bible, Saint Peter, he go through this kind of experience a process. So that paradigm shift might be a process or it could be a moment, but usually it's a process for people. And even as a Christian still, as a pastor, yeah, I'm still experiencing this paradigm shift. Always changing the idea toward my own idea to that of God's idea, God's will, and God's desire, the way how God sees the world. So being a Christian, that means your worldview, your way of perceiving the reality and the existence and the context is going to change from your kind of idea to that of God's idea. How God sees the reality, how God sees the human existence. So you are conforming the idea of God, God's idea, God's worldview into yours. That's a paradigm shift. So again, we go back to that very question. Is it going to be my world or your world? Is it going to be my word or is it going to be God's word? Is it going to be Christ's way or Jesus' way or Holy Spirit's way? So Holy Spirit provides His worldview, godly worldview, and divine worldview to you through the reading of Scripture, the Bible. So Bible is very key and important material or the resource for you to build up a Christian worldview. So without reading and understanding and knowing the Bible, you're not going to be able to really structure a paradigm, proper, good paradigm shift. And most people, most so-called Christian, just listen to the word of pastor, and that's about it, once a week. And they do not really study the Bible. So you remember last semester, last quarter, we have discussed about the Bible. The reason we did is because it lays a foundation for the Christian worldview. So to really study and understand the Christian worldview, it is key and important and necessary and critical to look into and understand the biblical worldview. So biblical worldview and Christian worldview is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And Christian worldview cannot be differentiated from biblical worldview. So Bible is the Christian worldview. And now again, is it going to be my kind of philosophy? The readings that I read from this secular material, or is it going to be what the Bible teaches me? And you have to make that decision. Which idea, which philosophy, which belief is going to dominate your thoughts and your words and actions? Okay, now the next topic, shared worldview. Even though there are 6 billion different worldviews, because I told you that every and each individual has their own worldview. Still, you're going to share a lot of portion of worldview. For example, so let's say if you're a American, born and raised in America, don't have to be a white people, or you don't have to be a black or the Latinos, doesn't matter. If you're born and raised and educated in United States of America, then you're an American and you're a citizen and you're an American. Now, so if you're born here and raised and educated in America, That means you have something called American worldview. That does not mean everyone shares the same worldview. So let's say we have person A and person B. Both are American. They were raised in America. They do share this so-called American worldview, but as you can see, A and B might not share the same worldview because there are some differences. Even though they have differences, they do share the common part. Probably that is over like a 90%. But if you're talking about the Christian and non-Christian, that's going to be something different. Non-Christian and Christian, believer and non-believer, they may share the less of the worldview than you may think. So there is much more difference. So let me draw that as an example. So this is a Christian, a believer, true, genuine believer, and this is non-Christian, no faith at all. They never heard of Jesus Christ or God or Holy Spirit or the gospel. If that's the case, they would not share, even though both are Americans, even though both are Chinese or Koreans. Korean Christian and non-Christian Koreans, they share something common as a Korean worldview. But in real life, other matters, they may share the history, same ancestors, and same government system and so on. But they think differently about the government system. Non-Christians and Christians think differently about the history. They have a different interpretation of history. Even though they share the same facts, the interpretation might be different. So that means much of the worldview are not going to be the same. So share the worldview and the different worldview. Next topic, who makes the call? So if there's a tension between, going back to, is that your worldview or is it going to be my worldview? So who's going to make that decision? So who's going to make the call? Making the call is like in a game, baseball game or football game or soccer. There's a referee. Referee is the main referee. Is the one who makes the final call at that particular game and event. So there has to be someone, some authority that is going to make the final call. And that's going to be the tough question. But even though it's a tough question, it is a very important question that anyone need to address. Even though you may not thinking of in terms of so-called worldview, still your life always have this question of dominance. So who's dominating my decision? You think you are making that decision and you are under control, but in reality, your worldview the way of thinking, which has been built up since your birth. So who's affecting, who's influencing? Your parents, of course, and your siblings, your sister, your brother. They are the ones who are going to have a great effect of building of your own worldview. Even though you may not recognize or realize, still, your worldview has been formed and informed and influenced and affected by many different people. So, what's the first influencer or the control of your worldview? Is your culture and your context. Context meaning the people around you and the history of your people, and then the environment and the society and the politics. These are the context. So context includes everything around you, and that includes the culture. The context is people, culture, history, and environment, and these things influence your worldview. It not only influences, it's the cause of the worldview. It's the foundation of your worldview. So the culture, I mean, we'll discuss each the culture and context later on, but that is going to be the major thing that makes the call. So even though you may not recognize the decisions that you're making, the words that you're speaking. I mean, if you're speaking Chinese, if you're speaking Korean, if you're speaking English as an American, that means that your language it's a culture. Language is a direct result of your culture, and language contains the worldview, the way of the pronunciation, way of intonation, way of the grammar, and the word and the concepts of each vocabulary. These are the elements that contains the worldview. So, whether you like it or not, whether you recognize it or not, the culture and the context controls your worldview. So how do you change? Through paradigm shift. This is you. You're the one who's under control of this paradigm shift. Some people may live a whole life without having a paradigm shift. That used to be the case in many ancient cultures, and until probably 19th and early 20th century, most people in the culture have never experienced a paradigm shift. I mean, minor paradigm shift, yes, but major paradigm shift never happened in their life, and that used to be the case. But today, world becomes more of individualistic. That means every individual has their own rights to develop worldview, and other than the culture, you are not going to be forced to have a certain worldview. When that happens, government has a difficulty in controlling people, because they demand all different things. In the old days, when king says this, that becomes the worldview of the people, the nation. But today, even the president say these things, no, you don't have to agree with it, and you have ways to live without agreeing to the president's remarks or president's worldview or ideas. In the ancient days, if you don't agree, you're just casted out of system or even killed. So because of that, the matter of worldview, the dominance may cause your life, and then you have no other choice but listen and just accept the worldview of someone else, the kings or the government worldview. But today, it's a different story. And the second line says community, society, and the family and peers. So these are other influencers. So as you grow up, culture is given, but the community, you are kind of born into the community. Society, you have some choice there. So you can choose which community that you are going to live. You can live in New York, or you can live in Los Angeles. You can even within Los Angeles, Southern California, you can live in the main city, the downtown, or East LA, or you can live in Orange County. So each community that you grow up may have different paradigms or worldview. So if the community tells you a different worldview, then you are going to learn and accept. Most time, I mean, you usually, probably 90-95% of the things that you're told as a child, you are going to receive and accept it without much resistance. And society is the same thing. Family, yeah, you don't have choice on that. You're born into a family, but as you grow up, you can just leave your family and live by yourself. When that happens, family is no longer a factor of influencing your worldview. So family is not making the call. But in the ancient days, or just a few decades ago, the parents are the main dominance in your worldview. They even make the call on your who you are going to marry. See, so that used to be a worldview. People did not have a freedom of choice by doing the romantic dating and choosing wife or husband. That's very recent idea in most of the countries and cultures. But in the ancient days, you're not the one who makes the call. So it's not just the social events, but that someone making the call for your marriage, that has to do closely with the worldview, because worldview says your parents, they gave birth to you and they kind of own you. So they have whole authority and possession of your life. Because of that, not only that they have authority, they still have the responsibility. As long as they live, even though they get old as 80 and 90, in the older days, they had the authority and the responsibility. Because of that authority and responsibility, they were able to make those decisions for you. So that's how the worldview says, and that's why they could make the call. They're saying the decision. So, but these days, peers are very important factor in building and formulating, even doing the paradigm shift on your life and your worldview. So it has changed. Now the peer tells you this is the right thing to do, and you listen. And probably you most likely agree and do as so. Rather than listening to your parents or even grandparents, you don't listen anymore. They are good when they give you some money, but other than that, you listen to your peers, your friends, right? Again, next thing, the religion, ethics, and laws. These are the binding things. It sets a limit. So worldview has something called a boundary or boundaries. So what the worldview does that we discussed about this last week, it sets a limit. It sets boundaries. So these religion and ethics laws mainly they give you certain boundaries that you are not supposed to go over, which limits your paradigm shift. Because of your religion you're born into. If you're born as a Muslim, then there's probably a very little chance that you will go through a paradigm shift in your religious worldview. If you're born as a Buddhist in Thailand, again, you're not likely to go through this religious paradigm shift because religion is the big thing, as some major limitation. It's a taboo. It's against the society and it's against the family to change your religion in some of the countries and some of the cultures. Some of the worldview says you're not supposed to change your religion, and if you change, then you're going to certainly face death. So that's limitation. Ethics, yeah, that's you have. I mean, ethics is one of the major worldview aspects. Again, yourself. In spite of all these things, when you're an adult, when you're a free person, and just if you're a person with a free will to make decision, then you are allowed to make your own decision. That's how God has built us. Adam and Eve, when God created them, Adam and Eve from Adam, He designed in such a way they have free will and desire and freedom to make their own shift or own decision. So you are a person because you are able to make, and you have the right and responsibility. Right and responsibility goes together, okay? Right and responsibility to make your own decision on your own life. People and the government and the culture and community and the society and your family and your peers they may hinder meaning prevent or go against of you making your own decisions. Therefore, you could have blamed your government, you could have blamed your family, and even you could have blamed your friends for the decisions, and that means you do not have your own worldview. Actually, your worldview says listen to the government. Your worldview says listen to the community. Your worldview says obey the family and just go along with the friends because you don't want to get out of that small community of friends. Because of all these reasons, hardly you're making your own worldview. People in general, I mean, it's not just you. Most of the people in general are afraid of making paradigm shift because when you make a paradigm shift or when you change your worldview, you will feel insecure because something that you are familiar with, that you're getting out of something you feel comfortable, even though you know this is not right, this is not just, this is not proper, this is not good. Still, there is that strong inclination saying, even though I do not really like this, I feel safe and comfortable because I do not know what's gonna be out there once I get out of this. So paradigm shift or change of your worldview is very dangerous thing because you are getting out of your safety zone, but you are getting out of the limitations of religion, ethics, and laws that are binding you. So you have a choice to make that, and some can be bold on this, some are not so bold or have courage to do this. So we are talking about Christian worldview, and I know that many of you are not a Christian, and some of you have been raised in a very restricted culture and restricted society, and those who are studying abroad here in America came from other countries, especially those of us who are coming out of Asian cultures and context. It is rather burdensome, meaning it's heavy on you, that to exercise a certain freedom that were given. That was my experience when I was young. I mean, I left Korea when I was at age 17, and until then, early Korea, even South Korea, and pretty much like North in many ways, very restricted, and the government had total authority and pressure on you. You have to go through this military training while you're in school and all these things. So it's another word, it's oppressed society by the militant government. When those things happen, you do not know because you have never been out of that context. But at the age of 17, you move from there to a very different world, and freedom was given, and you do not know how to exercise your freedom. You do not know how to make your own decision and be responsible because everyone else made the decision for you, and the only decision that you're making is, am I going to follow this instruction or not? That was probably the only and every decision that you're making, whether it's a family, or whether it's a school, whether it's a government, whether it's your senior in a company that you're working on. They tell you what to do, and your choice is just listen to them or get out of the system. So no one wants to get out of the system and be a fallout or the outcast. Yeah, that's the right word. So people generally do not want to be an outcast from a family or culture, from a friend. So because of that reason, that we are afraid to make that paradigm shift. But Christianity, the gospel, Jesus Christ, God the Lord, asks you to make that decision. And saying this Christianity, the Christian worldview, the Christian community, the Christian family is going to be much better than that you have experienced. It's not just a matter of better, it is going to be a totally different dimension. So, different level. I mean, totally different level. And, you know, the key thing here is a belief. So, when does this paradigm shift happen? When your belief no longer is relevant or valid to you. If your belief, your faith, and what you trusted is no longer valid to you, then you are on the verge of making that paradigm shift. But unless there's another belief system, another object of faith, you are not able to, you don't have that courage to make that paradigm shift. And Christianity, the gospel offers that another option, another ways, another worldview, another paradigm, another foundation that you can rely on, that you can trust, that you can put your life or bet your life. So that's the kind of change. So again, going back to the question, who makes the call? It was you who made all the calls, or your culture. Actually, it's your culture, your family, your government, and your friends who made call for you and with you. But becoming a Christian, that means it's going to be Jesus Christ. It's going to be the God, the Holy Spirit. It's going to be the Bible who is going to make that call of which is right, which is wrong, which is good or which is evil, which is better, which is bad. So that's the worldview. I mean, every action that you're taking, every decision that you're making, it closely has to do with the worldview, because the question is, who is making that call? Now, another aspect or characteristic of a worldview is this: the world that we live in. Another word, the word that we live in is called this reality. The world that I live in, the world that you live in, it's not perfect. It's been perfect until Adam and Eve made that decision to live without God. And they decide to doubt God, have questions about God's decision, God giving you the freedom, and even they question that. Because of those questions, they gone through that paradigm shift themselves, from good to bad, from best to worst. But they did not know then. Again, so the reality have issues and problems since that moment when Adam and Eve took the forbidden fruit, so-called forbidden fruit. Actually, it's not forbidden fruit, it's a fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. So once they took that, the evil comes in. With the evil, it represents the Satan. Satan is not evil, but Satan is the leader of the evil. Evil is not something. Evil is not some person. Evil is created when you discard or throw away the good. And because of that evil, these issues and problems comes into human history, human generation, into the reality. Reality says we have issues and problems, as many as the stars in the sky. So first issue is a sin, and because of sin, we have injustice. So injustice that we see, people try to blame someone else for that injustice because we feel that injustice is posed on, is imposed on you. But injustice is born out of you. As much as other people are not just, you are not just. You are the leader of injustice because of the sin. If we do not have sin, then there is not going to be no injustice. It's going to be all fair. Everyone, because sin says, me only, it's for myself, I'm the center of whole universe and reality. The existence and reality, it means that I'm the king. Even though you're not crowned king or legal government, the nation's king, you're king of your life. I'm the center. The whole world, the nature and the people and the system, it serves me. When? That's the mentality of a sin. So sin is not something that you're doing. Sin is that idea, that because that's the evil. Evil is that egoistic thoughts, and that desire, and not only desire, the actions and behaviors that cause from evil. So sin is caused by evil. Sin says, I do not need God. I don't need God. I can control my life. I want to have my ways, because I don't want anyone telling me what to do, even though it is good. No. So that's kind of definition of sin. So ego and greed has to do closely with the sin. And conflict of interest. See, the resources that we have, the human resources, the nature, and the food, and the trees, and the fishes in the sea, we have more than enough. The agriculture, you can produce more than whole human population needs, but people waste, and people do not share. See, that's the issue. These are two issues that we have conflict of interest, because people thinking there's only limited resources, there's only limited amount of things. Because of that, people do not want to share anything. And because people do not want to share, there is conflict of interest. Whether it's the things, resources, whether it's the money, whether it's the food, whether it's even the people. Some people want more people to be friendly to him and her. So we do not see someone else taking interest in others other than yourself. So that's called jealousy. So jealousy is a kind of conflict of interest. So conflict of interest covers many areas and many stuff. Okay. then politics and power. Again, politics and power is caused because of this issue of dominance. People want to dominate. That means the basic paradigm so most of the cultures, probably all the cultures have this vertical paradigm. A people above people. A man above a man. A man above woman. Older people over younger people. Learned, more educated people over less educated people. Better university and less likely university. So these are the vertical of political framework, power structure. So whatever the issue, whether it's education, whether it's money, rich and poor, whether it's talent, better talented artist and less talented artist, people like to lay it vertically. So you will feel more powerful. You feel you're politically above someone else. So that's the mentality of fallen human generation. Because we are corrupted, because we have ego and greed, this feels very natural. You don't see the problem of this. Only problem is that you do not, many times you belong to here than there. So those people who has money, fame, power, and the talents, and the better education, they do not want to come down from there. I mean, they want to keep it as it is because that lessens the conflict of interest. You would not have a conflict of interest because you own everything. And it meets your ego and your greed. So it satisfies you when you are there. So the politic mainly says, I want to stay here, you guys stay down there. See, this is the issue of politics and power and the worldview. Christian worldview says, no, this is not true. This is not right. This is not good. And Christianity teaches horizontal people relationship. Whether you're rich and poor, you're the same soul and spirit in front of God. God does not favor rich to the poor. God does not favor the college graduate to the non-schooled person. See, God does not favor white people to the black people. See, this is what the Christianity says. That's quite different from this structure. But some people try to bring this vertical idea into the church, which is God's institution. It's a divine institution. When that happens, the Christianity becomes, the church becomes corrupted. Church begins to teach something else other than the gospel. So when that happens, we need to reform. So the reason there was a Reformation in Europe by Martin Luther and the Zwingli and the Calvin These are the leaders of Reformation. The reason they did is because the Catholic Church brought in this secular structure. I mean, without paradigm shift, they remained in the same paradigm. And then they brought the secular worldly paradigm into the godly institution, the church. So you have to be careful. If you're a Christian, and if you belong to a church, examine carefully. Does this what we are now taught in the church from the pulpit, from the sermon and the preaching, is it true to the biblical teaching? To do so, you gotta know the Bible. I mean, unless you know the Bible, you're not gonna know which is the right and which is wrong. Only the Bible is the right standard. That's the right gauge. That's a right canon. Canon. I mean, a canon is another name for the Bible. Canon means it's the standard. So Bible is the standard, not the preaching, not the those dogmas. So political power again is the very important and big issue in the worldview. So another issue is those helpless and oppressed people. Those who remain in this here, a vertical down there. These are the people who suffer. These are the people who are helpless. These are the people who are oppressed. And the world that we live in, the reality says the world does not really want to free these people or help these people. But the religion basically wants to help those. The Christianity says, Jesus said, these are the ones. These are the ones. Orphans, widows, and the handicapped, the physically, mentally challenged people. These are my people. That's what Jesus taught. And the church now says those rich with well-dressed and nice luxury cars and with a big house, they are welcomed to the church. While homeless are not able to come to attend church service many times. So this is how the world reality is. Reality says we have a lot of issues and problems, and that caused from the worldview, corrupted and distorted worldview. Now we are going into the subject of dichotomy. So these are the one of those examples, good examples of the character, one of the major character of worldview. So when you look at the worldview, you're going to see this dichotomy. And dichotomy, another word, is two bipolar realities. So basically it's divided into two. It means divided into two. So these are some of the major examples of dichotomy that we see in the worldview. So when you see the world, when you see the reality, when you see your existence, and when you examine yourself, you try to divide, again, related word. So in the computer term, domains means that you have certain authority over given address, right? Same thing. And domains. People, by nature, we have ability and desire to divide the world into certain domains. So we can understand the world and we can explain the world and we can communicate what I see to others, what I understand to others. So the communication is the key to understanding or dividing domains. And most of the culture, I could safely say all the cultures have these two world ideas. They basically divide the world into two. And then there are several different ways to divide the world, the reality, into two. So we will look at each of these and get some idea about the concept of the worldview, right? So, seen and unseen. This probably is the most common division to world. Whether it's an ancient culture or modern 21st century, 2020 culture, it's the same. People perceive physically something that you can see, and there's the domain that you are not able to see. Some of those unseen worlds might be your imagination. It doesn't really exist. It's not the reality. But when you imagine and if you believe it to be true, because I said, yourself, you are the one who's going to build and make the worldview. That's how you perceive and how you understand, how you interpret the reality. And then it becomes reality. Even your imagination can become reality, even though it's not visible, it's unseen domain. It becomes your reality. So, example of unseen world, the spirits, God, angels, these are not visible. Your soul is not visible. Your thoughts, that's not visible. But these are conceptual. So the object, angels, God, and Satan, and the ghost, these are unseen. Seen world, there's some things visible. I don't need to give an example. Nature, that's the sky, the stars and moon and sun, these are visible. But the difference between the nature and the moon and stars, the moon and stars and sun, they are not touchable. They are not, you cannot reach those objects. It's beyond your reach, beyond your understanding, beyond your examination. Your hand and foot cannot touch those things. So that within the even the visible world, there is something that's mysterious, and there's something that nature is still mystery. Nature is mystery, but basically you can touch and you can you have control over it. But moon and stars and sun, these are not under your control. So when it's beyond your control, worldview says it's something of mystery. And they put a certain value to it, and even they worship it, because they are not able to control, but rather moon and stars, the sun, it controls you, the day and night. See, in the night, moon, full moon to crescent, these changes. You cannot control those changes. You cannot make a full moon the next day a crescent. No, that doesn't happen. So when something is beyond your control, that becomes something of awe, something of respect. Okay, we'll stop here and I'll continue this lesson in next week. So next week's lesson will start with the topic of dichotomy and worldview. And okay, have a good day and I'll see you